Hi everybody, welcome to the Department of Illumination studio. I am Susanne, one of the artists for Icebox and many Department of Illumination events. I'm here today to show you how to make a shadow puppet theater at home using everyday materials that you find in your drawers. Okay, today to make our beautiful shadow puppets, what you will need is a pencil. You will need cutting tools like scissors, box cutters, or an X-Acto knife if you've got an adult helping you today. Tape, so clear tape, masking tape. You'll need some glue, and glue stick works really well. To make the puppets, you will need a cardstock kind of quality paper, Bristol board, or like I said, cardstock, or even box board you find in your recycling bin. You'll need some translucent or semi-see-through paper. That could be tracing paper, it could be wax paper, or even parchment paper that's in your kitchen, or even fancier translucent colored paper if you've got that. You'll need bamboo skewers. You will need colored permanent markers. Permanent works best. You will need twist ties and maybe a couple of buttons or light wire if you've got that. You will definitely need a box. So this pizza box is what I'm using today. Or if you've got shipping boxes at home, any kind of cardboard that's nice and stiff works really well. You'll also need a light source, whether that's a desk lamp, a small desk lamp, or a flashlight. So the first stage of this project is to create the theater that your puppets are going to play in. You'll need to choose a box, and that will determine the scale of your production and your puppets. If you are working with little hands who will be cutting out shapes that might need a little bit larger puppets, so make sure you choose a box that will accommodate that with a larger screen. In this case, I actually chose a pizza box, and this pizza box lid acts as the screen. What I did was I cut a shape out of the pizza box, and then in behind I taped a translucent piece of paper, tracing paper, taped and glued, and that acts as the screen for this puppet play. If you've not seen a shadow puppet play before, the way it really works is that you've got your silhouette or your puppet created from the construction paper or the cardstock, and you've got the translucent screen, and you've got a light source. In this case I'm going to use my phone for the light, and to demonstrate how this works. So you place the silhouette or your puppet between the screen and your light, and there you go. So next we're going to make our theater screen. So we're going to take our box, or our pizza box in this case, and we're going to take some scissors and cut out a hole. And then I'm going to take my translucent paper and I'm going to cut it and glue it and tape it down into place. So our next step is to determine the story you're going to tell, because your story determines which characters or which puppets you are going to create. Are you going to tell a tale that you've created yourself? Will you tell a fairy tale or some folklore tale that you've heard? Today, I have chosen a story from Hans Christian Andersen's book, The Snow Queen, and it's a tale within the tale, which is the Snow Queen and her snow bees. It has a few main characters and some great, beautiful elements that really interest me. So next we can talk about characters or the elements of your story before we launch into making the puppets. Now think about who your main characters are, maybe what's in their world or in their environment, if there's objects like, a chair or window, different things like that. Now in my story, I have a little boy, I have a little girl, I have the wise grandmother, and I of course have the Snow Queen, and also I've made the snow bees, which are objects that I've created to add to the story. When you're creating your puppets, you're going to be cutting the paper to make designs. You're going to cut out a silhouette, which is the outside, but you're also going to put some details in your puppet that also create ways for the light to shine through and create different things like eyes or patterns on clothes or hair, for example. You can also use your translucent tracing paper or your wax paper to color those with your markers and create details like colored eyes or colored clothing, or in this case I've created a yellow body for the bees. So let's talk about your characters and how you're going to design and draw them and how you're going to cut them out. So think very carefully about your design. Your puppets are going to withstand some use and abuse when you put on your clay. So make sure they have some substance to them. So when you're designing their outline, that their extremities are beefy enough they're not going to fall apart. Children, when they design characters, they often make skinny parts of bodies, and so just help them along in making more substantial pieces that will not fall off and that will withstand a bit of use. Also think about when you're cutting out shapes within your character for details, think about the integrity of the puppet and that you won't be able to cut entire eyeballs out, for example. That would be very difficult, or even you can see on the ears that I've cut that they're still attached to the main puppet, or even in the folds of Grandma's dress. They're just really little strips to kind of indicate a texture or a fold in her dress without the integrity of the puppet falling away. So let's start by making simple eyes, and I'll show you how we can use a sort of mirroring technique like you do when you make snowflakes. When you fold a piece of paper in half and you draw and cut that shape out, and when you unfold the paper, you create a symmetrical mirrored design. Using a pencil, you can draw out your design. If you need your design to show up more, you can use a colored pencil, for example, to make it more stand out. These are an example of very simple eyes, and see how it was folded and drawn and then cut out, and then you unfold it, and there you go, you have two eyes. So here's an example of a more complicated eye that I'm going to use more complicated tools. I'm going to use scissors, but also X-Acto knives or box cutter, which is something a more advanced cutter should do. So now that you've cut out your design, what you can do is add some details with color, for example. So you can use your translucent paper. I've got some tracing paper here. What I'm going to do is use my permanent markers, and I'm going to color the color I'd like to maybe add. In this case, I'm going to use some green. Make sure when you choose colors that you use lighter colors that will actually let the light shine through, as opposed to something dark like black or dark blue. You can actually use that's a sort of a template, and know what kind of size of coloring you might want to do. You can go like this, put this underneath, and then we'll know exactly how much we need to color. Like I said, the permanent markers are what stays best on this paper. Just make sure that you color it big enough, or that you're going to cut it out big enough that it's larger than the space you're going to fill, because you need to glue the edges down. So I'm going to cut that out now. So next I want to show you how to make a moving part. Really, it's quite simple. You're going to cut a separate piece. An arm or a limb actually works really well. So you're going to cut that as a separate piece to your main puppet, and then in order to make that work, we're going to use a twist tie, and we're basically going to cut a couple of holes in here and slip it through, and then slip it through the other part, and you can just twist it. You can also use a button to make it as a joint, and it would be very similar. You would just feed the button through the twist tie, kind of like this, and then you can feed this through the back of your puppet, and then again make it a moving part like this. You can see it's just twisted twist tie with a few holes. At this point, attach your skewer with the pointy side down securely with tape and make sure there's enough room for you to use the top of the skewer as a handle for your puppet. In a large town, there lived two little children who had a garden. They were not brother and sister, but they cared for each other as if they were. They were neighbors and often played delightfully in their rooftop gardens together. In winter, there was an end to their play in the gardens, and one day there was quite a snowstorm. The boy's grandmother said, "It's the snow bees that are swarming." The boy asked, "Do the snow bees choose a queen?" "Yes," said the grandmother. "She flies where the swarms hang in the thickest clusters. She is the largest of all. She can never remain quietly on the earth, so many a winter's night she flies through the streets of the town and peeps in at all the windows, and they freeze in such a wondrous manner that they look like flowers." "Yes, I have seen it," said both of the children, and they knew it was true. The end. And that's a wrap. Thanks, guys, for making a shadow puppet theater with us. I had fun. I really hope you guys had fun too. Please share your creations with us on Facebook or on Instagram. Tag us if you can, and we'll see you later. Happy puppeting!